Wilson Fisk, aka the Kingpin, the most powerful crime lord on Earth. Wilson Fisk wasn't always the feared crime lord that he became later in life. Wilson was an unpopular and chubby kid who was mercilessly picked on by his peers as a kid. Not partaking in the usual athletic activities of kids his age, Fisk discovered a knack for uncovering the weaknesses of others and using them to his advantage. This proved to be a much desired skill he carried into adulthood as the criminal mastermind of New York. Wilson Fisk is ruthless, cunning, and wide-bellied, and while he lacks the superpowers of most of his foes, he does have the brains to outsmart them, at least for some time. Fisk has clashed with heroes, anti-heroes, and villains alike, and has been at the center of many, if not most, wrongdoings committed in New York City. He does everything it takes to keep his grip on the New York underworld, which is why he's known as the Kingpin. Kingpin is a famous Marvel villain who first appeared in the pages of Amazing Spider-Man number 50 in 1967. Fisk began gathering power in organized crime at a young age and swiftly rose to become one of New York's most influential figures. Fisk's escapades constantly brought him into confrontations with Spider-Man and Daredevil, despite the fact that he used his intelligence and clout to hide his illicit operations. This eventually led to attempts to enter politics, which attracted Matt Murdock's notice. In the comics, the two have sparred numerous times, with Kingpin ordering assassinations on Matt's pals and exposing his double life to the world. Whenever a hero has managed to apprehend Fisk, he always managed to escape. Today, we will take a look at the most powerful crime lord on Earth and wade through the murky waters of his past. The Kingpin first appearance. The Kingpin was created by writer Stan Lee and illustrator John Romita Sr., who modeled his physical appearance on actors Sidney Greenstreet and Robert Middleton. The Kingpin is portrayed primarily as a crime lord in his debut story arc in the Amazing Spider-Man number 50 through 52. But one who is exceptionally hands-on in his illicit enterprises. In subsequent appearances, again written by Lee, he takes on the role of a traditional supervillain, deploying wonderful inventions to advance his nefarious exploits. The character developed more in the early 1980s. Kingpin was characterized as a calculating, cold-blooded crime lord who continuously kept outside the reach of the law in a series of appearances in Daredevil by writer/penciler Frank Miller. Kingpin was widely recognized as Daredevil's arch-enemy, hence this was the character's dominating form for decades. Spider-Man, Daredevil, Echo, Hawkeye, and the Punisher have all faced him in the past. Kingpin has had a lot of encounters with Spider-Man. He once allied with Justin Hammer to protect himself from the web-slinger. He is able to use the services of Electro, who overpowers and captures Spider-Man when he breaks into Fisk's headquarters by trading construction contracts with him. Wilson unfortunately has no idea who Parker is when he is unmasked. When Fisk accuses an associate, Mr. Big, of disloyalty, he is bested by Spider-Man. He crushes Big's skull by putting Spider-Man's mask on his head. This is captured on video surveillance, which Peter collects and delivers to Urich. Kingpin is forced to flee to Brazil as tangible proof of his betrayal reaches the news. However, Daredevil, aka Matt Murdock, is Wilson Fisk's most formidable foe. The lawyer-turned-district attorney Murdock makes significant efforts over the years to take down the #1 gangster in New York, clashing both on the streets and in court. Murdock joins his Defenders colleagues Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, and the Iron Fist to attack Fisk as a team, as a masked vigilante. The Kingpin Dark Origin. Like every good villain, Kingpin also has a terribly dark origin story and a childhood filled with hardships that turned him into the ruthless crime lord we know him best as. Wilson Moriarty was the man who would become Kingpin. Wilson was overweight as a child, and as a result, he was shunned by his peers. Wilson's father was a small-time crook who aspired to be a mafia boss. Mr. Moriarty, on the other hand, was unable to join the mafia. Fisk believed that physical strength was a key aspect in gaining influence in the underworld as he grew older. At the age of 12, he committed his first murder and began training to increase his power as much as possible. He was attracted to sumo wrestling and the academic discipline of political science. He stole books from stores and libraries in his quest for knowledge, refusing to become a henchman for local criminal overlords. Instead, he formed his own gang of adolescent buddies, earning the moniker Kingpin of Crime by the age of 15. Wilson attempted to join his father's gang as a young adult in order to gain approval from his father. Wilson's weight, however, slowed him considerably, and he was eventually apprehended by the police while his father managed to flee. The judge offered Wilson Moriarty mercy if he named any of his accomplices during his trial. Wilson, on the other hand, refused to confess that he worked for his father and was sentenced to prison. Wilson recognized while in prison that he was completely alone and that he would have to learn to survive or perish. Wilson went to school and learned a lot. He had collected a vast amount of knowledge by the time he was released from prison and proceeded to construct a criminal empire. Wilson Moriarty hacked into police databases and had all of his criminal records erased. He changed his name to Wilson Fisk around this period. He pretended to be a trustworthy businessman and humanitarian. However, he covertly expanded his illegal enterprise. Wilson was dreaded all around New York City, but his exact identity remained a mystery. As a result, the media began to refer to him as the Kingpin. The only person who could incriminate Kingpin was his father, and he knew that. As a result, Kingpin had his father located and brought to him. Kingpin's father had suspected he was his son and professed his admiration for him. Kingpin, on the other hand, sought vengeance for his treachery and had his minions assassinate his father. The act of patricide sealed his reputation as a cold and ruthless killer who would stop at absolutely nothing to get what he wanted. Illegally moving radioactive waste through New York City was one of Kingpin's first illicit endeavors, but his illegal activities did not stop there and ranged from bribery all the way to murder and massive cases of corruption and cover-ups. This man had a dark past, and it turned him into a formidable villain. Kingpin's major story arcs. A crime boss who has been around for as long as Kingpin has, he has multiple major story arcs, and we will discuss all of them briefly. The first one has to do with Spider-Man. Fisk would realize that Spider-Man was his greatest threat, as he was the one who put an end to all of his attempts at uniting all criminals and mafia families. Fisk would finally get his wish after reading the Daily Bugle article claiming Spider-Man had retired from crime fighting after laying low and waiting for the right moment to strike. In Spider-Man's absence, Fisk would push all criminals to unite and dominate the streets of New York City, resulting in one of the city's worst crime waves. After the Kingpin's men captured Daily Bugle owner J. Jonah Jameson, Fisk would finally face the resurrected Spider-Man. Even though Spider-Man was able to stop Fisk's crime spree once more, he was caught off guard by Fisk after mistaking him for a simple overweight criminal. Kingpin would arrange the deaths of both Jameson and Spider-Man by drowning them both in a locked room after easily defeating and knocking out Spider-Man in combat. The next major story arc came as he took a new approach to gain control of New York City after secretly recruiting an Osborn employee known as Dr. Gerhard Winkler, who specialized in brainwashing techniques. He cautiously rebuilt his reputation as both a legitimate businessman and a crime lord. Fisk now used the alias of the Brainwasher to fund Winkler's services, who was also receiving his equipment from Oscorp Industries and surreptitiously creating a dance club called Gloom Room, a go-go to hide his operations. Fisk's major goal was to utilize the club as a tool to brainwash and influence significant figures in New York City, making it easier for him to rule the city. When Norman Osborn, Winkler's boss, discovered Fisk and Winkler's hidden activities, as well as Spider-Man eventually learning Fisk's whereabouts at Osborn Industries, things went from bad to worse. As Spider-Man defeated Fisk, Osborn accidentally destroyed Winkler's brainwashing machine, freeing George Stacy and everyone else who was under Fisk's influence. Fisk managed to avoid authorities by escaping on one of Osborn's private helicopters.
You have a metal arm? That is awesome, dude!